I do want to first of all say that I do realise that Sherlock Holmes didn't wear a distal.
Good Lord.
What are we doing here? Very good question. Glad you've asked me that.
What has been the purpose of this elaborate play acting?
We are here to record Jonathan Barnes's latest masterpiece, Sherlock Holmes the Untold. Is it The Untold? I thought it was Sherlock Holmes Untold. Sherlock Holmes Untold.
We'll just edit those bits out, it'll be fine.
I think that Sherlock Holmes Untold is a really good jumping on point.
This one is being released as original Sherlock Holmes would have been released. They come out every week. Each episode is a mystery in itself, but each episode in itself is also adding to the big meta mystery.
To some degree, we're trying to mimic on a weekly rather than the monthly basis, but you know what the Strand magazine did.
I've really enjoyed the format, the new format that we're using, these half-hour, bite-sized, punchy stories.
And I think that's given it real sort of fizz and real momentum.
The way Jonathan's written them brilliantly is that yes, there might be a conclusion, but there's enough there to keep you hanging on. So you do have to listen. It was unusual. It wasn't what I was expecting, and in the writing and where the story took it. So I really enjoyed exploring and seeing that happen.
I think it's probably the most ambitious story that we've done.
Each of these stories comes from a reference to stories that Conan Doyle himself referred to.
Readers of Holmes stories will know that Doyle absolutely peppers those stories with references to other cases, unchronicled cases, you know, mysteries and investigations for which the world is not yet prepared. And it's it's a huge amount of fun as a reader to be tantalised by some of these sort of off-screen adventures.
Alongside these investigations, which I have recorded elsewhere, there was also the adventure of the shambling child, the devastating, though mercifully short-lived, disappearance of the Pushkin Memorandum, and, in the terrible autumn of 1902, the bloody and protracted downfall of the leader of the London underworld.
We've got, cameos that hopefully should sort of delight Holmesians. There's a fascinating figure who again only appears in one story called Langdale Pike, the great society gossip.
You went to him, then?
I did indeed. Langdale Pike.
Langdale Pike!
Returns from Mycroft and Inspector Lestrade.
Mycroft Holmes?
Good evening, gentlemen.
One of the most tantalising references Doyle has is in The Adventure of the Veiled Lodger. And he says that attempts have been made to get at my tin box full of all these old adventures. And if these attempts persist, I will release the full story of the politician, the lighthouse, and the trained cormorant. And that's always seemed completely tantalising. That sort of formed the spine, in a way, of the overarching theme.
In spite of all our recent travails, I have not forgotten the lighthouse, or what was done to poor Mr. Godber.
Anyway, my dear fellow, and I'm not really smoking, I want to just point out as well. We've been doing these Holmes stories since 2009.
The time has just... There it goes. Flown by. But this is the first time I've seen your knees.
They're out of shot. We're not seeing. It's very hot outside. It's quite cool in here.
One can hardly threaten a duke with violence, for example, or attempt to bribe a man of means.
Oh, come now, Watson. You have seen me do the first, and the second is by no means impossible.
What I like about Holmes is that he's very direct and very single-minded. And those are the characters I always like to play. And even if the character isn't written like that, I often end up playing it like that anyway, because I love that directness and then the sudden deflection to something else. And then I just find that really exhilarating to do. And I think it fits Holmes to a T, but you have to be so energized to do it. I remember once playing him on stage in the Speckled Band, and I was very tired when I did one performance, and I suddenly changed direction while I was holding onto a bed and just fell over because I just didn't have the energy to support myself. Luckily, that hasn't happened this week. What about Watson?
I've always loved Holmes and Watson. When I was a kid, I tried to create my bedroom as much like 221B Baker Street
Really?
as I could. Yeah, because I'd never thought of myself as a Watson type, certainly not a Holmes type either. Just so Holmes, for all of his almost superhuman qualities, cannot do it on his own. He cannot do it on his own. That Watson is not simply there to stand next to him beside the fireplace at 221B and have it all explained to him. Watson is frequently the plastic duck which needs to be thrown into the bath to draw the attention away from what's really going on. Yeah, and I'm sure if you were to ask Watson, he would say that he was absolutely delighted to be that plastic duck.
It's so funny, you thinking, oh, I'm not really a kind of Watson sort of person, but I just thought, who do I know who's a brilliant actor and is kind of like Watson? And I just immediately thought of you.
I was like the first one to answer the phone.
I want to know how it started, sir. How you became a blackmailer. What led you to it?
I know Ken keeps telling me off for trying to colour every third word, but it's because every word is so beautifully colourful, and I want to present all those colours. And Ken said, no, Jonathan has already done the colouring in.
Yeah.
Just open the book and hand it over.
That's the recurring note for you, is it? His recurring note for me is usually, and I've anticipated it this time, so I don't think I've heard it yet, which is faster.
It felt a tad slow, gents, is all I'd say.
You have to be energized to play Holmes because he's so smart.
Yeah.
He doesn't and he comes to his conclusion very quickly, and if he doesn't know, he's very quick to become frustrated. So everything he does is fast, really.
Yeah.
I have seen in some Sherlock Holmes performances where he's very, I don't know, perhaps. And I don't think he's like that. I think it's firing all the time. He can't help it. His brain, all the neurons are firing all the time.
Yeah.
And it's either that or lethargy and he's using the needle.
I've tried to go in there at a very low level, hoping that everybody will just kind of, oh, okay, that's the level we're at. And then, in comes Noel Coward on speed. And I'm thinking, why doesn't my tongue work like that? Why don't my lips work? What's he having for lunch? How come I'm sort of clammed up with all sorts of... I bring in apple juice, I bring in water, I've got Lucozade on tap.
Well, you have got all the narration to do, and that is, narrating is very similar to acting, but it's not quite the same thing. It's a different skill.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah.
Dissipated old fop? Was that me you're talking to?
It's lovely working with Richard. He's an annoyingly modest person, to the point where you just want to slap him and say, don't you know that you're brilliant? Never wants to talk about himself. And whenever I ask him a question, he deflects.
Look, a squirrel.
Oh, yes. But he's lovely to work with, and I love what... he gives himself a really hard time, don't you?
Well, I thought, I'd cut out the middleman and I'll give myself a hard time rather than any poor person.
Is that what it is?
Who has to listen to it.
It's a defense mechanism. But it's lovely. I mean, there's a lovely warm moment right at the end of this, which I won't reveal, where I have to say something very nice to you. And it would have been inappropriate for me to be too moved as Holmes, but I found it really moving to do that last little speech.
How dare you, Mr. Holmes? How dare you?
I can stop them. I just need you to tell me something more about the lighthouse.
Get out. Leave my presence immediately. Leave me at once, sir, lest I have you forcibly ejected onto the street.
Phillida, that's lovely. Can we give her much more status?
Okay, so much grander, much more historically grand.
Yes.
Okay.
Something that comes up in Sherlock Holmes Untold is something that we've explored a lot over all our Sherlock Holmes adventures, and in fact we did it in Holmes and the Ripper, Brian Clemens' script, is Holmes's relationship with women.
In this one, we've also got a Watson who is shocked and delighted in equal measure as he sees Holmes forming quite a close connection, a close connection, nothing quite about it, a close connection with an attractive young lady, and Watson for the first time has an opportunity. Oh, bravo, bravo, Sherlock. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, obviously if you're looking for any kind of man-to-man kind of advice and guidance, well, you know where I am. Of course, being Watson has got completely the wrong end of the stick.
It's a sort of mystery to the audience, and I don't think Holmes understands it completely, but he is drawn to very strong, intriguing women.
Holmes is always attracted to people of any gender who have what he has, who have an almost, it's not a killer instinct, but it's a laser-like focus on what they want.
You sort of follow the tradition of Doyle writing some really fantastic female characters. Where do you gain the sort of shape and inspiration for those characters?
Well, very much from Doyle. You know, there are lots of, you know, great female characters in Holmes. I mean, the obvious example would be Irene Adler, who, you know, after Moriarty really is the great opponent of Holmes. So I've been very much sort of trying to follow in his footsteps. But he's also a much more kind of interesting and subtle writer than I think he's sometimes given credit for.
You're not the languid spider who sits in the midst of a web of all the scandals and uproar of society.
Would you also say that some of the longevity for Big Finish is because of just how good Jonathan Barnes is?
Yes. I think one of the key moments for me was when we did The Perfidious Mariner, which was the first one written by Jonathan Barnes. And I just thought, and Ken Bentley thought, I think as well, oh, hold on a sec. This is really working because it's new, but it really feels like Conan Doyle. And we didn't look back really. We just thought, we're just going to get Jonathan to do it every time. That was a very special moment.
I mean, it's always a pleasure to write for Holmes and Watson, to write for Nick and Richard, and to put them in slightly different situations. I'm always slightly worried someone's going to come into the room and, you know, gently prise my hands free of the Sherlock Holmes stories.
There were a number of people on a promise to write Sherlock Holmes stories, and we were gathering writers, and, you know, after a few years they were going, hello, wasn't I meant to be writing one of these? And I was thinking, it's Jonathan from now on, really. And he's very smart, and he does it in this story as well. He plants little seeds for other stories. He says that something happens at the end in this one, doesn't it? And we think, well, what's that about? Oh, it's about Jonathan getting another commission.
The Adventure of Shoscombe Old Place, The Queer Mystery of the Three Garridebs, and The Business of the Red Circle amongst them.
So, Jonathan, tell me about working in the worlds of Holmes and Watson and delving in and writing in that universe.
All of these Holmes stories have always been an absolute labour of love. You know, I've been a huge Holmes fan for, you know, since I was a small boy. To get the chance to come in and play again, with, you know, get that toy box out and sort of put them together in interesting and new configurations. You know, it's always a real pleasure.
It's such a cracking story. It's real sort of edge of your seat stuff. And it's got a sort of modern sensibility in it, even though it is set, you know, from the late 1800s right up to 1913. There are some eternal themes of human frailty and political machinations. Some of it will seem very familiar to modern audiences. It's not just a dry, old-fashioned story. There's a real driving force of conspiracy and the horrible underbelly of politics and the manipulation of people. I think it's got everything that a modern crime thriller has as well, but with the extra zest of it being that sort of vintage setting.
If you miss one of these mysteries, ooh, you're gonna have to catch up, because it's even though they all do stand alone, if you buy them all, they add up to, I think, what is the best one so far.
What a way to end your career.